Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin DPI State Superintendent candidate Brittany Kinser is our very special guest today, Friday, February 14th, 2025. Happy Valentine's Day. Holy cow. They do that like every year. They should do Valentine's Day like every other year. That'd be a lot better for Ben. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Visit afpwisconsin.com to learn more about AFP and to join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. A quick special thank you to Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany for joining us for a chat yesterday. In case you missed it, you can watch a recording of that live show and all of our live shows on our right here on our Facebook page under the videos tab on our website at DrydenWire.com. Or it's probably just easier to go to our YouTube channel where we store all of our live shows, the recordings, at youtube.com/DrydenWire. With that, please join me in welcoming our guest today, one of three candidates vying for office for State Superintendent of Public Instruction in Wisconsin's Spring 2025 primary, which, man, that's coming up. That's Tuesday, February 18th. Brittany Kinser. Brittany, good morning.
Good morning. Happy Valentine's Day.
I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Drush and I don't really do Valentine's Day, now I think about it, which is good, because her birthday was last week. So we go out for a birthday. But Valentine's, I don't know. Are you a big Valentine's Day person?
No, kids like it when you're in the schools, right? Like it's a fun day for that, but not really personally, no.
Yeah, I think Valentine's Day stopped being fun for me in like 5th grade. When you go into middle school, because elementary school is always fun, getting something from a girl with a little right. So that was like the height of Valentine's Day for me.
Cupcakes and all the candy.
Yes.
Little Valentines. Kids love that stuff.
Well, the primary election will be held on Tuesday, so obviously a lot to talk about there. But first, this is the first time you're on the show. For people who don't know you, tell us about you. Like, where were you born and raised? Before we get into the politics, let's get into the person.
Okay. So I was born and raised in Illinois, right, like 30 minutes south of Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Oh, sure.
In a smaller town suburb called Crystal Lake, Illinois. And I grew up there with my family. I went to Catholic school, and then I also went to traditional public school. I ran track, played basketball, all of those. I was an athlete. Then went to college in Illinois and got my special ed degree. I ran track there for a little bit also. Really? And then
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on.
Go ahead.
So you went to college for a special ed degree. So you knew that's what you wanted to do? Or is it one of those, you go to college and like, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I get there. Did you know that's what you wanted when you went?
I did, and I can tell the story on why too.
Yes.
So I thought I wanted to go to school to be a doctor, and at the time AIDS was it was an epidemic, and I was like, I want to cure AIDS. I wanted to help. But then in 8th grade, one of my classmates, we had a small class, there were like 27 of us in our 8th grade class, and one of my classmates, his brother Jake was at a school for students with significant special needs. And we went and volunteered for the day. And it was the moment when I decided I wanted to be a special ed teacher. They were teaching children how to, well, first it was like swimming and cooking and just the daily life skills. And I loved how much the teachers cared. The parents were there, and you could see that they were really preparing children to be successful out in the world. And that's when I decided, I thought maybe I want to be a special ed teacher. And then my dad had a change in career. I don't know if it was a midlife crisis now that I'm thinking about it, but he went from sales to being a special ed teacher. And I went and worked then during the summer at a school where he was working at, that was residential, working with children. So that's when I decided in 8th grade, and then I just kept with it and decided to do that in college, and I loved it. And so I went to school to be a special ed teacher.
Oh, my goodness. By the way, good morning, Dave Wilson, and good morning. I'm still going to call you Representative Gay Magnifici. I know, Gay, that you're now retired, but you're still Representative Gay Magnifici to me. Special ed, though, I mean, that's I think there's a lot of the feeling you have to have a lot of compassion and you want to do good and you want to help, but that's got to also, were you anticipating the emotional impacts of that stuff? Because that's God's work. Like, no kidding, man. Helping individuals with disabilities, that's incredible. Were you thinking about that stuff then, or you did? I'm like, yep, nope, totally get it, love it, that's fine. I can't wait for it.
I I just I wanted to help, and I loved being at that school with
Sure.
the kids and the staff and the parents, and it was just like, ooh, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like that's, yeah, that young when I was 13, 14, I didn't really know what that meant.
Right.
But if like someone had told me education, I've had a boss where I was working before for 13 years. He's like, this is your calling. This is your life's calling. And I'm like, yeah, I think you're right. Right.
Oh,
I just knew it. And so, I'm so glad even at the school that I opened, we had 20% special education, and families wanted to come to our school because we did such a great job of working with families and making sure that our kids were getting what they needed, no matter who they were. And I think that goes along with my campaign is I'm open to talking and working with anyone who wants to put kids first. And I truly believe that that is how we can make education better.
I 100% agree. And good morning, Duke. Oh, speaking of game manager, Duke,
Oh,
after Gay,
good morning.
retired, now Duke, Representative Duke Tucker in the 75th. Good morning,
I,
Duke.
I think I met Duke last night. Hi, Duke.
I saw something on his Facebook page, actually just like 20 minutes ago,
Yeah, we met.
that he had a picture of the two of you. It looked like a Zoom call or something, and he
Yes,
put that.
we're
I
on Zoom.
literally just saw that. Yeah.
We were on a Zoom last night. Hi, Duke.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you went to college for this, so you're like ahead of like most people. Like, I know what I want to do
Yeah.
uh, when I get to college and for a career, because most people don't kind of figure that out till later. So you finished college and then what?
And then I went to Chicago and I became a special ed teacher. And I worked 2 years in special education as a teacher in the high school level, teaching science with special students with special needs and doing some co-teaching. And can I tell a story about a student?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I first of all, I didn't realize I loved my college experience, but I was not taught how to teach reading. And I was a special ed teacher. You would think, right? But this is a whole issue that teachers aren't taught phonics, how to teach phonics. And it's not just oh, I know how to read, I can teach someone else how to read. If so, we wouldn't only have 3 out of 10 students reading well enough, right? It would be 95%. So I was at the high school level where I was teaching, and this student named Adrian always came in, big smile. He'd be like, "Hi, Miss Kinser." Like, he was a ninth grader, so kind. And I was teaching environmental science and just had this great energy. It just seemed like he never had a bad day. And the kids loved him no matter what. And so, no matter who they were, he's just a really likable guy. And um, he could talk about anything about environmental science. I also was helping him in a history class. He could raise his hand to have amazing discussions, in-depth understanding. But when you'd ask him to read or write, he could not. He couldn't. And so I realized this the first week, and I said, Adrian, what happened? Like, why can't you read or write? He's like, well, I have just a mom, and my mom grew up in another country where she didn't get to go to school past like second grade, and she doesn't know how to read, and no one taught me how to read. And this was an example of Adrian being passed along because he's such a lovely person, right? Like, he's smart, right? He can talk about things. Teachers love him. Everyone loved him, but he didn't know how to read and write. And so I was lucky that the school I was working at had a reading center, and I recommended him to go to Miss Hunt, who taught him phonics, and so was able to take him and teach him how to read. But I can't believe it took until ninth grade, right? Like, this whole time, poor Adrian hasn't been able to read and write. He's in special ed classes. He was so bright. He did not need to be in special ed classes, but he had to because he couldn't read or write. So he got to work with Ms. Hunt. And then after 2 years, I went to Japan. So this is like 20 years ago. It was a long time. I'm older. Like 22 years ago. I go to Japan to teach English for a year. And then I didn't have like a laptop. We didn't have phones where you could text your
Right.
family to tell them you're okay. So I had to go to a coffee shop, and I would text, I'd email my family telling them I'm doing well. Well, one day I got an email from Adrian, and it makes me like very emotional. It said, "Hi, Miss Kinser. Can you believe it? I'm writing you an email." He's like, "I had Candy make sure she proofread it because you're a teacher. I didn't want to misspell anything, but I've learned how to write. Miss Hunt taught me how to read it."
What? Come on.
Yes, it was so amazing. I had a pretty emotional moment in this cafe in Tokyo with Adrian emailing me. And that is where I realized, like, that was where my love for teaching kids how to read and write really sparked. I've always wanted to help kids who needed it the most. But that experience, knowing that Adrian was 14 before he got that one-on-one help, and then he was able to read and write, and he's like, I'm applying to colleges. It was so amazing. So Adrian is the student that taught me, like, it's taught me a lot of things. We push kids along, right? Maybe, make them, put them into special ed, not always, but this is one of the cases, right? And then I had another kid where I opened up a math and science academy in Chicago, and Darius, amazing when it came to doing a lab, right? He was the leader. You had 4 kids in a
Sure.
lab group, science group, the leader. But as soon as you asked him to write out anything or read the science lab, he would throw a pen to get out of class, right? Because it was embarrassing. He couldn't read and write. This was a kid who is a leader, right? Kids just ate, they'd
Yeah.
eat right out of his hand. But then he also couldn't read and write. And so that is actually, Darius was the child, this was like 10 years in, where I decided I needed to go back down to elementary school. It wasn't just Darius, there were lots of students who couldn't read and write. Brilliant leaders. We need them to be leaders in our society, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I went back down to elementary, because I knew that kids needed to learn earlier. Because Adrian's an outlier that he could actually learn how to read that much later in life. And we had a reading center. The school I was at with Darius, we didn't have the funds for a reading center. We didn't even have specialists, right? Or we didn't prioritize it, I guess, unfortunately. But so Darius was the child that made me realize, I need to go back down to elementary and ensure that kids are.
Yeah. But that totally has to fill your cup, right? When that
Yeah.
stuff happens. And
Yeah, of course, right? But it shows you the potential of all our kids,
yeah.
right? They're so brilliant. Good morning, Steve.
Morning.
But like, kids come with all this potential. But if we don't give the teachers what they need to teach our children, then the kids aren't going to get what they need. We know from research that 95% of kids can read well enough to go to college, get a meaningful job, or master a trade. But we need to make sure, like with the new Act 20 that we have, that our teachers are getting the training they need to teach phonics and reading comprehension with the science of reading, so that they have the skills they need to teach our children.
Sure. We have a question. Actually, this is from my father, Terry Dryden, who was a sheriff here in Washburn County for 28 years until he recently retired. His question is, curious why Governor Evers is not supporting the current DPI secretary. She's pretty liberal and would fit with Evers' consistent liberal views. Do you have any comment on that, Brittany?
So I don't know anything about their personal relationship. I just know that the governor has come out. He was the one who set with Walker, when he was superintendent, and then Governor Walker's, they set the standards at the nation's report card. So we could be we could set highest standards. Then Underly lowers them. She also she was not transparent when MPS just went for a referendum last spring. It's almost been a year now, about the mess that MPS was going through with their financials. He came out and said, no, we need to have an audit. They just came out with a blistering
yesterday, wasn't it?
Yes, and saying so he has come out saying, like, I don't agree with the work that Jill Underly is doing. I don't know, he didn't say it exactly like that. He just says, he doesn't say her name, he just says, I don't agree. I wouldn't maybe have done that. And so it sounds like they just have a different opinion on how.
Well, he was on that, I think it was Wisconsin Eye or WisPolitics or something a few weeks ago. And I think they even asked him a direct question, do you endorse Jill Underly? And it was an emphatic no. But the Democratic Party is, so I'm like, wait, what? So It was just
Well,
the whole thing's kind of bizarre to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I said here, he disagreed with her on lowering standards. He disagreed with her on the budget request. She's asking for the entire
Yeah.
surplus.
By the way, I mean, come on, we all know why she's doing it. I mean, listen, I'm not banging on her at all for this. But this is, come on, this is saving your job. I'm going to ask for everything in the whole world.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's kind of a Hail Mary in my opinion. Outside looking in without having any inside information about any of this stuff, that strikes me as a Hail Mary.
It strikes me as not being common sense. Like you're going to ask for an entire surplus. We
Yeah.
have lots of, I mean, of course, I would love that. Education's my issue,
Yep.
but
Right.
we have lots of other, needs out in our state. Like that's not going to happen. And you need to be taken seriously
Yeah.
as a leader, and like you need to be able to have the conversations with the legislature, have those relationships in the governor's office, so they'll work with you. But if you're going to ask for something that's not going to happen,
Yeah.
we need someone who's going to be taken seriously in that position.
Well, and there's another. Well, shoot. Let's get to another question here, but I want to kind of go back to where we kind of left off because I do kind of want to catch up in your life story until how you got to where you are now. But here's a great
Okay.
question from Steve: why are raises for teachers set at a mark, and most are not performance based? Do you have an answer for that, or a view or opinion on that?
Yeah, I believe that we need to reward our great teachers. There are some local districts, like I was just in Cedarburg, they give merit pay to their teachers. You can do that. You don't have to set it at, everyone gets paid this amount every year, no matter your results. They're paying their great teachers. It sounds like a small, I don't know how they're doing it, but they are doing a merit pay. So they're giving them
Sure.
extra. They're meeting certain goals. I 100% believe that. I was just talking to another school leader at a district. How do you do that? Some of our teachers, a majority of teachers, great teachers, when they're working really hard and it's results oriented, when you see your kids growing, you see your kids getting to proficiency and beyond, we need to reward the great teachers. It doesn't have to be like that. We just have to be innovative, right? And when I'm superintendent, I can offer suggestions on this is how other districts across our state, there are some that are doing this already. This is how other like charter schools are doing it. This is how other states are doing it to make sure that we are rewarding our great teachers, right? We want to keep our great teachers. And if you're able to say, hey, when you meet these, performance metrics for our students, like this is what you get, like great, right? Like that's being treated like a professional.
Yeah. All right. I think we left off at went down to elementary.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I went to elementary.
Right.
So I knew that I wanted to go back down. So as a special ed teacher, you're certified, and I did have a certificate. I know that they were trying to hit me on that in Illinois, K through 12th grade.
Wait. What? Hey,
So
so I didn't hear
yeah.
about this.
So one of the candidates put out a hit piece on trying to say like Brittany doesn't have a certificate for Wisconsin. Well, I didn't teach special ed in Wisconsin. I taught it in Illinois, and then I did have a principal license here in Wisconsin. But that's one of the issues is that we can't. So they were saying I didn't have a teacher's license in Wisconsin. I'm like, well, I didn't teach here.
Right. Why would you
So,
have a teacher's license in Wisconsin?
yeah, and so I said, and also we know license doesn't actually equal great results for kids. If so, we'd have better results for kids too.
Well,
That's a
there's
whole
that.
nother issue.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, and like everyone agrees we need to be able to attract more teachers into the profession and then retain them. We cannot have, like, I know people here in this state who have 2 degrees from Harvard, award winning from another state. He cannot be a teacher here because of all the barriers and all the red tape. Like at DPI would change that. We need to be able to let local districts create different teacher pathways so that, of course we want quality, but we would be looking at student achievement and growth to ensure that we have great teachers. And then if we can get that merit pay too, like there's a whole other innovative way that we can attract talent from our communities and from outside and retain them. So so they said that I wasn't qualified because I didn't have my teacher's license here. First of all, I am very highly qualified. The only qualification you need, really, you don't even need those. You don't need a license to be superintendent. So they just put that out there, and one of the newspapers here picked it up, which I was very disappointed in because then it made it an issue. But I also get to talk about how, as we know, there's a huge teacher crisis here, and we don't want to put red tape. So Where was I?
Your elementary school, you do have a license in Illinois.
Yeah, I had one in Illinois. I had one here for 10 years to be a principal, a Wisconsin
Sure.
principal.
What got you to Wisconsin, though?
What'd you say?
What got you to Wisconsin?
Okay, so I was working in a public charter school in was in Chicago. Went to school in New York. I got a great opportunity to go to school in New York to be a principal. I got a scholarship to go there. Then I got recruited to go out and work as an assistant principal in California at these schools that were closing the achievement gap. So we know between Black and white students and brown and white students, there's this gap. And they had this great parent engagement. So I went out there. I actually went to visit a friend and I got hired. But then as I was there, Milwaukee was looking for better schools. So the mayor at the time, the Common Council president, other community leaders came out to Rocketship Public Schools out in California and asked us to open schools here in Milwaukee. So I opened up an elementary school here in Milwaukee, at the time, the largest opening of a charter school with 300 families. We ended up being a beating the odds school. I got an award from Governor Evers, for the achievement and growth that we had in family engagement. One of the top schools serving the community. After 2 years. So, and we really focused on making sure that we were teaching phonics in our first 2 years, giving the teachers the training that they needed. A lot of teachers, we had them raise their hand. Who knows the difference? I'm kind of getting into some jargon here. Phonics versus phonemic awareness, and as an educator, you should know that. No one raised their hand.
Difference between phonics and what?
It's called phonemic awareness, but I'm getting into the jargon. It's like
but now I want to know. But now I got to know.
It's like decoding is the phonics, and the phonemic awareness is the listening. Like if you think about rhyming, right? You need to be able to rhyme if you want to be a good. One of the parts is rhyming. So there's a whole other thing. But anyway, so we were teaching our teachers how to teach phonics, and then my school leaders, so we could coach our teachers. We were using a research and evidence-based curriculum. So that's how I got into elementary school. So then was principal there. Then I ended up becoming a director of schools and helping us grow here and some other places outside of Wisconsin. And then after 10 years with Rocketship, I then went and was a CEO of a nonprofit for education. And this is where I really built the relationships with the legislature, bipartisan, and the governor's office to ensure, kids who are going to private schools and charter schools, there's a huge gap in funding. Plus, across the whole state, we got an increase in funding. And then after that, I started my initiative, 95 Wisconsin, where we are making sure kids are getting one-on-one tutoring, and then teachers are teaching phonics, and where we are I'm coaching school leaders to support their teachers in the classroom. So.
Yeah, you're one of the guests that we don't like having on because you're like one of those overachievers, and you make the rest of us kind of look bad.
I'm a little bit of an overachiever when it comes to kids and education.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to me though is, so many people. I saw, I don't know if it was a study, but a story that had said that the average person doesn't find their career until age 35. What's interesting to me is this is what you've wanted to do, essentially all under the umbrella of education since 8th grade. That's pretty rare, right? That it's like, I loved it then and I love everything about it now. And everything I've ever done in my entire career has been under this umbrella. I'm just saying that's not common. Most people don't.
Yeah, and I feel like there's been some evolution of it, right? I was a teacher. I thought I would be a teacher in the classroom forever. I remember someone saying I could see you being a principal one day. This is when I had Adrian in class. I'm like, no, I'm going to be with the kids the whole time. But as you go along, right, you're like, oh, maybe I could do this. And you get different opportunities. Yeah. And I think that's like our kids in Wisconsin. We want to make sure they get different opportunities. If I hadn't been brought to Jake's school at the time, I would never have known I wanted to be a special ed teacher. It was like that opportunity to be at that school and feel the love there and just see the great things they were doing for kids. I don't know, just that was what I needed. It's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, and it's what's next. That's what I hear a lot from what you're saying is the do this, but then it's what's next. So, which leads to, what was the decision-making process there to run for state superintendent? Was this something that you just woke up one day and said, I know what I'm doing? Was somebody had to talk you into it and say, you know what you should do? Like, how did that process work? It was kind of that behind the scenes.
Yeah. So after I had worked at the nonprofit and we had gotten this big win, I worked with hundreds of families, hundreds of families. That was part of this. I, the glaring, like, you know, reading crisis. I'm like, I need to get back and try to help this, right? I've had experience with students and at my own school. We need to get back to phonics. Act 20 just happened. So I started this initiative, right? 95 Wisconsin. And we're in 5 schools in Milwaukee. And I want to spread it across Wisconsin. And so, this was last spring, almost a year ago now. And I brought something that was working, the one-on-one tutoring that's working in another state where kids are growing 2 years who hadn't grown since COVID, right?
Yeah.
But it was working, the one-on-one tutoring. So I'm like, we need to bring it to Wisconsin. So I did. And this is part of when I'm the superintendent for DPI, I want to bring best practices here. Like, let's bring it. If it's working, let's bring it here, right? So I start this 95 Wisconsin. We have 5 schools. The Department of DPI knows that I'm doing this. They're interested in learning more. Maybe they could figure out how to support it, spread it throughout Wisconsin, having conversations.
Love it.
But then and they know that I am completely dismayed at this 3 out of 10, only 3 out of 10 students reading well enough to get a job, go to college, or master a trade. But then I hear that Jill Underly lowered the standards for what it means to be reading at grade level in Wisconsin. Not like supporting our teachers to help them get our kids where they need to be or make sure we give the tutoring like 95 Wisconsin, but let's just lower the standards. Like when I ran track, well, I can't get to 11 seconds in a 100-meter dash. Let's just make it 60 meters and then I can get to 11 seconds. That's not winning.
Yeah,
right?
Jill Underly, what she should do, she should be a part of, like, I don't know who makes a decision on what obese level is, but she should work for that place and then raise that so then I'm no longer obese. Like, perfect. I'm obese one day and perfectly fit the next day. This is fantastic. Yeah, right. She needs to work there.
But I said, like, but I said to them, I said, listen, you can lower the bar, but that kid still knows he can't read. Adrian would still know he can't read, right?
Right.
His future employer knows he can't read. Derek, my student, they still know. Their employers are going to know. Colleges know. Trades will know. I said, this does not help kids. Why did you do this? Who did this? And they're like, well, we had 80 experts. I'm like, who are these 80 experts? Like, unfortunately, we don't have 80 experts in Wisconsin on assessments. We just don't. And then I was told, well, we weren't even aligned to the nation's report card. I said, yes, we were. So I sent the links. We were actually a little low in 4th grade. We should have raised the standard by like 2 points. And then I was eventually told, we were texting, that I was just too angry about this. So then I got really angry. I was like, everyone should be angry. And people are going to be really angry when they find out that you lowered the bar for kids. And yeah, adults might feel good. Like, oh, look, we have more kids who are reading on grade level now. But they're not going to be prepared to go to college and get a career. Like, that is not being honest. And so how did this come to me? So I put my phone down. I went for a run. And as I was running, I was kind of just saying a little prayer. There's like this little forested area over by my house over here. And it popped into my head that I should run for DPI superintendent. I was like, oh, it was really loud. Like, you should run. And so then I ran for another 20 minutes, came home, and I reached out to some people. I've never been in politics. So at that point, I had no idea what it would take. I had no idea. Right. And so some responses back were like, you're crazy. You're going to go up against the Democratic Party, who can raise millions of dollars. They've just endorsed Jill Underly. Then other people were like, you can do it. Right. And so but then I realized, like, how do you get a campaign manager? This is during the election too. So everyone working on campaigns is very busy. And so I couldn't find, everyone was like, people were really supportive, but I couldn't find anyone to be my campaign manager. I had to get 2,000 to 4,000 signatures in a month over the holidays. And I'm someone who jumps in and just does things. Like, I just started this 95 initiative, right? Like 95 Wisconsin. I've started a school. I'm like, well, maybe I just do this. But then I'm like, how would I do this? I'm not, this is statewide. So So then I decided, okay, I'm not going to do it. It's like the second week in December. The other candidates are already getting their signatures. I'm like, I guess I'm not going to do it. Well, then a principal texts me that I know from here from Milwaukee, and he's like, Britt, if you're not going to do it, who's going to be the voice of our kids? Oh, See,
Well, now you have to do it. Right.
I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Who's going to be? I was like, what do I tell this school leader? What do I tell the hundreds of parents, thousands of parents I've been working with here? And then one of his he has a committee. One of his committee members, Rob, calls me. He's like, hi, Brittany, you don't know who I am. My name is Rob. I work with this. I'm not going to call out this other school leader. The school leader in his school. I have 50 volunteers who are ready to get you signatures. I was like, oh, I've been looking for the doers, right? Not just the talking, people telling me this is a good idea. And I was with my sister, she never is up here in Wisconsin. She was here, and our dad died 5 years ago. And she's like, Dad would really want you to do this. She's like, why aren't you doing this? This is you. You need to jump in and do this. And I said to Rob, hey, Rob, I don't have a campaign manager. And I think he's almost retired. He's like, well, I'll be your campaign manager until you get a campaign manager. And I can help you start fundraising. So I found out, I got online. I'm like, how do I even there are rules, right? I talked to someone who has run campaigns. He's like, you have to sign up online. You have to have at least one person be on your committee to be your treasurer. So I started asking friends. This is on a Saturday. Like, will anyone be my one committee person? People were scared. They're like, oh, I don't know. That's a little, that's political. And have you seen all these ads, these attack ads? I mean, people were scared. Yeah. So then I went to a kindergarten teacher who was amazing, who helped me start our school in, Milwaukee 11 years ago. I said, hey, Rachel, will you be bold enough to be my one committee person, my treasurer, until I can figure this all out? She said 100%. She's like, I believe in you. We need to do better for kids. So we got on Zoom at 7:00. I think it was December 15th on a Sunday. We got on Zoom together, read through all the paperwork, signed up, and went from there, and ended up getting a bank account the next day. Well, that was hard too. Like, Chase didn't want to help me, so I went to Tri-City and they helped me. So, and then Amy Loudenbeck, we had done a little bit of work together, side by side on some things. And she's like, can I help you? And I'm like, she's like, I can get some signatures for you. I'm like, can you help me organize all these volunteers I have? And she's like, let me see. She's like, it's already December, I don't know, was it December 18th or something at this point? She's like, you have to get all these by the first week in January. She's like, let me call you back. And half an hour later, she's like, you can do it. She's like, we can do this. Sure. And then she's like, I'll help you. And then the next day I'm like, can you just be my campaign manager? I need a campaign manager. And she's like, yes, I'll be your campaign manager. She's like, let's put kids first. And then it just started to build. We got other people on my team. And then we got over 4,300 signatures. So thank you to any of your listeners that, signed the paperwork or got signatures. We beat both candidates by thousands of signatures. It was amazing. And, we turned in 4,300. I got another 1,000 after that. They came a little late, but it was really phenomenal. And people just believing that we need to restore high standards. We need to focus on teaching reading, writing, and math so kids can get a job, can, go to college if they'd like, or master a trade. So many families, I've been traveling across the state, everyone has a story about a child that they've worked with that's not learning how to read, or they have a family member who's a teacher who wants more support, right? All across the state, I'm talking with families, and it's really resonating. And I'm the common sense candidate. I want to make sure that, families have choices, whether it's, overwhelmingly families are choosing their traditional public school or open enrollment. That's the number one school choice option, is open enrollment, or private schools with scholarships, which we call vouchers, public charter schools, homeschool. virtual school, right? I believe that we need to have all those options for families to choose what's best for their child. Making sure our parents are involved. Like I said, like making sure that the money is getting into the classroom. We're rewarding our great teachers, not more bureaucracy. Making sure the DPI is transparent so we know what's happening. They're predictable. They're innovative, right? And when I put together this platform, it's really resonating with people. But then as the nation's report card scores came out, Louisiana they have amazing results. They're the top in the state or in the country. And what is he focusing on? He's focusing on early literacy, like I'm talking about. He's focusing on transparency. How are our students doing? Not waiting till third grade, but providing information in kindergarten, first grade. That's when our kids need to learn how to decode, sound out words. Because think about it, in second and third grade, words get more complex. So if you don't know your sounds and you know how to blend your words together, like bat, mat, like simpler, how are you going to do the larger words, right? And so, and he's giving options to families. He's like, I believe in a portfolio. He calls it education freedom. And they're getting the best results. We have to start looking across the country and the world on what are they doing to educate their children, so that we can do that here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, if it's going well for them, why wouldn't be able to? I want to go back here real quick. There's a couple questions. Dave Wilson. Brittany, as I mentioned last night on the Zoom call, so apparently he was on a Zoom call with you for something.
Yeah.
My question is, if you are elected, how will you fix the funding formula impacting our public schools?
Yeah. So I said, like, the funding formula is so complex, right? It's so old also. And right now, like, many districts are having to pay a lot with their own property taxes. I promise, I'm not the legislature or the governor's office, so I don't get to make that decision. But I have those relationships where I promise to be an advocate and leader to help simplify that formula, work with the experts on that, work with the legislature and the governor's office, so there is fair funding. I promise you that will be one of the things I work on, one of the priorities, because I'm hearing about that throughout the state, no matter if we're up north, down here in Milwaukee, Kenosha. I promise, it hasn't been worked on. People are like, well, it's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard, but it's really important that we work on that. So I promise I will work on that.
All right. And speaking of legislature, Senator Romaine Quinn has, I think it's a comment, the current DPI superintendent has politicized the office. This only hurts students and erodes the relationship the office needs with the legislature. It's time for change. I already baked my ballot for Kinser. You should too. Do you know Romaine at all? Have you had a chance to meet him?
We've met a couple of times, yes.
He's all right. I don't know. He comes on a show once a month, so I should probably be careful. I'm just kidding. Romaine, we like Romaine. He's
Thank you, Romaine.
He's pretty awesome. And former Representative Angie Sabick, Kinser is going to dominate this primary. Good on her for coming on DrydenWire. So I never like to look up anything about a guest or really get to know them until like a half an hour before they come on, which is it's absolutely true. So this morning I just kind of Googled your name because that's my favorite thing to do is Google somebody's name before they come on. And I forgot to print out some of the things that I saw, but it was something that was along the lines of Democrat, because this is a in-name pretty much only non-partisan race. Something about you donating to Democrats, and there were several stories about this, and they made it seem like, not good or something. I don't know. You must obviously be very aware of this, and people who follow you must be very aware of this. But for us that don't, what is that all about?
Yeah, so when I got into this, because I always say, like, when I interviewed to be a special ed teacher or a principal or anything I've done, right? No one has asked me, well, are you Republican or Democrat? Because I have to help work with families no matter what, right? Like, you can't say, well, I'm sorry, you're this party, and I'm just not going to help your kid.
It's like a sheriff. Like, we have a lot of we support a lot of law enforcement. As a sheriff or a judge, is just do your job. Like, that's it. It should be. Don't let the other stuff get in the way. And ideally, we'd like that in the Supreme Court, but unfortunately, we don't really see that. It's too politicized, and just stop it. Just do your job.
I would be appalled if someone asked me. I'd be like, oh my gosh, you don't have your priorities straight here. Like,
Right.
that's totally inappropriate, right? We got
Yeah.
to with all kids and families, right? So that's what I was thinking. I'm not a politician. I've never done this. So in my past, yes, I have voted for Democrats. I have donated. I've also voted for Republicans, and I've also donated to Republicans.
How dare you?
I
My
know. And
goodness.
so everyone wants to put me in like a box. Like, where do you
Hey,
fit?
welcome to our world, right? We're
And
apolitical, but it doesn't matter. The fact that you're
doesn't
on,
matter.
if you have a right leaning or left leaning, well, then that's what we are. So, no,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Well,
I think that's brilliant what you said. That we always want to put somebody else into a category box because that's how it's comforting to us to know. Like if it's a
yeah.
Trump or a Biden sign in your neighbor's yard, well, say no more. I know everything about them now. No, you don't. Right?
No,
Stop it.
you don't. You don't. And I do like I differ on from the Democratic Party where they are not pro school choice. I differ on that. I don't think they're right on that. And so I will say that, right? Like there are Democrats who are for school choice. There's thousands of families here. 50,000 families in Milwaukee are not choosing the traditional public school. They're choosing their school choice. Yes.
Hmm.
And so and people make that a big issue, right? And so I believe that we need to get back to basics. And I think people who, whether they're Democrats, Republicans, independents, moms, dads, anything,
Yeah.
grandparents, aunts and uncles, like they, people, as I'm talking about restoring high standards and making sure we're focusing on the basics of teaching reading, writing, and math, so kids can get a job, right? I keep saying this, attend college or, master a trade, have a bright future. People are getting behind that. Like it's just common sense. And so, yeah, so I know people are kind of fighting over that on both sides about where
Yeah.
I fit.
Yeah. Because of that though, did you not know going into this? Because it isn't technically a Republican or a Democrat race, right? It's a nonpartisan race.
Hmm.
Did knowing this about you, you've supported both, but you have a focus of education first.
Hmm.
Was there an unknown for you when you talked to Amy Loudenbeck, who she's been on a show for? I love Amy. Tell her I said hi. Uh, did you kind of know where it's going to land? Is it like, boy, I don't know. Republicans may like me, they may not, because I did donate to Democrats and vote for Democrats. Democrats may like me, may not. Like, did you have any idea how that was going to play out at all, or was it like we'll see?
I kind of was like, I really came into it as I want to improve education for kids. So I've worked with all, families. When I work with the families or staff, like they're not all one party, right? So
Yeah.
I never looked at it through that lens. But when I have had to work on educational issues here in Wisconsin, when we got more money for kids here in Milwaukee and throughout the state, it was a bipartisan. It was bipartisan. So I was able to work with both sides. And so I believe that I can work with both sides. I've done it before. So I just had this belief. It was kind of like when I knew I was supposed to be a special ed teacher. Like,
Yeah.
I know I can work with everyone on education issues because as long as you're going to put the kids first, I believe that we can have great conversations and come to a common understanding because there's not a parent out there that I've talked to or a community member that doesn't want better for their kids. And that doesn't believe this. So I guess that's where I came from of like,
Sure.
yes, I knew there was going to be some tension. I'm not completely oblivious, right? But like, I just believe that people can come together for the kids. I really believe that.
What about the media? How's media treated you? They want to put you in a box, right? They probably want to put you in a box more than the average person. Probably, I think the average person probably doesn't.
Yeah.
But I would say probably more media probably would. How's that going? Are you getting? Do you feel as though you're being treated fairly, just as the goods and the bads, but equally across the board with you and the other candidates? Have they put you in a box? What are your feelings or thoughts on the media's take on you?
It depends on the journalist or the media.
Well,
It depends. I was very disappointed that the journalist at the MJS picked up that political hit on me for my license, just the way she put it in the title, making it sound like
um,
I wasn't
who
qualified,
was
which was
this? What paper?
it was the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel
Journal
first things.
Sentinel. Oh, we were just in the Journal Sentinel. Yeah, that was fantastic. There was a
Well,
writer down there that, yeah.
I was really disappointed. Like that wasn't journalism.
Yeah,
And
no.
so I just thought, oh, you could do better. Like that's not fair to the readers. Maybe because, I'm an empathetic person. I'm like, I know that newspapers need more readers, so maybe this is like this spicy thing, but it just it wasn't honest, and it was, clickbait, and so many people reached out saying, "Hey, this was not. What was
Not
this?"
cool.
Right?
Right.
So it wasn't cool. It just wasn't I thought it lacked integrity when you're going to put something out there like that.
That
So
sounds like it's like a campaign piece, not like a journalist piece,
Yes, I was like, it made me wonder. I'm like, is she working for one of the campaigns? Oh, really? Because
Right.
I'm so new to this. I was like, oh, is she working for one of the campaigns? Oh, wait, no, this is a newspaper, right? And so, it was very eye-opening. But she's helped me grow thicker skin,
Oh.
and also some of my people who I hadn't heard from in a long time was like, we know that you're 100% qualified. Like that was not okay. That
Sure.
wasn't good journalism.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've learned through that too. And so I can tell when people are talking with me where they stand, or they might not like that I'm the common sense candidate. I can now kind of read it by their body language
Sure.
and what they're asking.
What are your thoughts when you see Donald Trump and you see like Congressman Tiffany's on a show yesterday and he was co-authoring a bill. I don't want to misquote it. I can't remember, so please don't fact check me on this. I think I'm paraphrasing something about not. Basically, it was like we need to reimagine, relook, and look at our Department of Education as a whole. When you start seeing politicians and legislatures and even our president, when you start seeing this stuff, are you cautiously optimistic? Are you for some of these things? Are you like, wow, no, stay out of this?
I am for making sure that the money that we're receiving for like our Title I money, our special ed money, grants for kids who are living in poverty, right? Like we want to make sure that our schools are getting that money. That would be detrimental. And I know, like I've been told is we're still going to get that money. It might come through a different department, which is fine as long as the state gets it. I've also heard that we may get more because all this other like skimming off the top is not going to happen. I don't take my word for that, but I've been hearing there's a lot of misconceptions. People are worried about the funding, right? Like, well, how are we going to fund special education, or how are we going to fund our title? We need our title dollars. I 100% agree. We do. So as long as we get that, I'm fine. The office has been the Department of Education, the most recent person who's in charge of the Department of Education came through and talked about how school choice shouldn't be an option for our families in Wisconsin. And I just thought you're using your position for politics, not for what's best for kids. Let's talk about how many children aren't reading here, right? Like that's what you should be talking about and what you're doing to help. Like enough of like attacking only 5%, like only 5% of kids are using like this, scholarship that we want to call a voucher. 5%. Why aren't we focusing on the 800,000 kids and we only have 3 out of 10 that are reading well enough? That illiteracy is the enemy, not families that are choosing different options for their children who are living below a certain income. They're not the enemy. That is not okay to me. That's how I feel. I want these politicians to look at the families here in Milwaukee specifically who are choosing to use a voucher, a scholarship, because they're living in socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhoods, that they want to send their child to a different school. I want them to look at those 50,000 parents and say, we want to take this away from you. And then, by the way, we'd like you to vote for us later on.
That was the best part of that whole thing. We have time for one more question here. Louis,
it makes me very upset.
I can tell, and you're very passionate. What's your stance on having technology, i.e. tablets, cellular phones, and computers for educational devices for K-12? Are they, oh, they went away. Hold on. Are they hindering our children's experience in the education system?
So I think that tablets and computers, if they're, educational, if they're being used for educational programs and you're able to see the results from them so you can see how kids are growing, limited amount of that in the classrooms, right? You don't want it all day. People try to say at the school I worked at, kids were on computers all day. I'm like, that's just not true. It was like 30 minutes or less. But anyway, and it's usually used as like an intervention while other kids are getting tutoring, or it's used to help them at their level to grow. So I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with cell phones being in the schools.
Thank you.
I support that not being, I'm not a lawmaker. I would not be a lawmaker, but I would support schools not having cell phones in the classroom. We know that it's a distraction. Social media is not good for our children's, mental health or adults, right? We know other countries are banning them. And so we need to take a stance on that so that kids can focus on learning in the classrooms and not being distracted with their phones.
All right. Well, 2 comments here. Gene, in the name of Jesus, amen. You guys should smile and laughter and love and peace in the mighty name. Amen, brother. Amen. And then, Spooner Health CEO Mike Schaefer, one of our very good friends, friend of the show. Thank you for coming on DrydenWire so those of us north of Wisconsin can learn more about you and your experiences. Good luck. We're already blew past our time here. But first of all, thanks for coming on. But at the same time, we've talked about a lot. We could talk for another hour or two. And by the way, please come back on before the April election. So the election is on Tuesday. But what do you want to make sure that we talked about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Just please vote. Today's the last day for early voting. Please get out and vote today or vote on the 18th. And tell your friends and family. I tell people, find 5 to 10 people that will go and vote. Like, this is such a low turnout. The 2 other candidates have, unions that are mobilized, are ready to do this. I do not have that, right? So I'm depending on people who want to put our kids first, want to restore high standards, want a common sense candidate for the kids. So please, please, please get out and vote today or on the 18th and bring your friends and family with you, please.
Yeah, I did, when I Googled your name again this morning, something about the last finance stuff or something that you had, like, I don't know what the period was, but it was like 300,000 and the other ones had, like, I don't know, 30 or 60, 70,000. Yours was a lot more, but I thought for sure, I read that it was like the most ever raised, and I don't know if it was like over a period of for one quarter or maybe total, but maybe more than even Governor Evers, who had the record before, when he was. Is that true?
That's true.
What?
So, yes. So I actually, total was 500,000, and so I only started, I started on December 17th with zero. And then I just started reaching out and telling people, just talking like I did here. Right. And I was so grateful for the support because I have to get my name recognition out there. Right. And people need to hear my messaging and hear my platform. We needed to be able to raise money to be able to get it out there. And it's very expensive.
State races, that's it. That's a huge component. It just is.
So yeah, I shattered, as my team said, shattered the fundraising goals. And we needed to show that we were a serious campaign. Yeah. I'm a serious campaign. We have people who are behind, giving money, donating so we can get the name out. So grateful for all those donors, all the way from $10 donations where people are like, this is what I can give. I support you, all the way up to people maxing out at 20,000. And so just so grateful. And again, Democrats, Republicans, independents, teachers, community leaders. Again, it just across the gamut. So I'm just so thankful. And I'm going to have to raise millions of dollars now for the general.
Right. And that's coming up quick, man. It's like just a little over a month after. Oh my goodness.
6 weeks after. So, hoping that everyone turns out and I can get through the general. So,
all right, we'll have you back on before the April election. So we'll look at like a little over a month from now. We'll have you back on.
Thank you so much,
Brittany. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Special thank you to Wisconsin DPI State Superintendent candidate Brittany Kinser for taking the time to come on for a chat today. I will see all of you on Tuesday when Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back for our 221st episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, saying thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.